The moment the alien fleet entered the outskirts of the solar system, the universe seemed to shift for those aboard the ships. They had traveled countless light years, guided by their advanced instruments and the quiet curiosity of explorers who had seen nearly every known world. Yet nothing in their experience had prepared them for Earth. Even from the void of space, the planet shimmered with color in a way no simulation or report could capture. The blues of the oceans, the greens of the forests, and the swirling patterns of clouds moving in currents of wind and storm were mesmerizing. It was alive in a way that made their sensors struggle to process all the data. They hovered in orbit, silently observing, as if holding their collective breath. From their vantage point, they could see the tiny lights of cities stretching across continents. Some lights were clustered in bright, ordered patterns, while others flickered and danced unpredictably. They watched the oceans, vast and deep, and noticed how the currents carried things across immense distances. They recorded everything: the way the planet rotated, the seasons shifting, the weather forming in patterns that seemed random yet somehow logical. The planet itself seemed like a living organism, breathing through storms, quaking through earthquakes, and thriving in its endless cycles of life. For the first time in their history, these aliens encountered a world that did not fit neatly into categories. Their civilization had cataloged thousands of planets, each with life forms, atmospheres, and structures that could be predicted and analyzed. But Earth was different. It defied expectations. There were forests taller than their observation towers, oceans deeper than their measurement limits, and creatures capable of adapting to nearly every environment. On land, animals roamed in endless variety, some small enough to fit in a hand, others massive enough to challenge the imagination. Yet what puzzled them most were the beings that moved differently from all others: humans. The aliens watched humans from orbit, noting their buildings, machines, and the strange, organized chaos of their societies. Humans were fragile, their bodies exposed and vulnerable, yet they moved with confidence across the land, oceans, and sky. They built towering structures of stone, metal, and glass, reaching toward the heavens as if to challenge the cosmos itself. The aliens were fascinated by the variety of human life. Some lived in dense cities, others in small villages, some on the edge of the wildest deserts, and others along the frozen poles. No matter the environment, humans found ways to survive and thrive. But it was not just survival that caught the aliens' attention. Humans created, destroyed, loved, and fought, often all at once. They played music that resonated emotionally, even when the notes were imperfect. They painted, danced, wrote, and performed rituals that seemed meaningless on the surface, but carried profound significance. The aliens could not understand why humans would risk themselves for such abstract things. They analyzed the data, trying to measure the efficiency, the logic, the purpose, but there was none that matched their calculations. Humans acted on emotion, instinct, and imagination, and it was this unpredictability that left the aliens both curious and cautious. Some members of the alien fleet wanted to descend immediately, to observe humans more closely, to interact, perhaps learn directly. Others hesitated, concerned that any interference could have unknown consequences. After long deliberation, a small, specialized team was chosen to descend to Earth. Their craft, unlike the massive ships that hovered in orbit, was sleek and silent, designed to blend with the natural environment as much as possible. They traveled through the upper atmosphere, careful to avoid detection. From high above, they could see the mountains, rivers, forests, and deserts stretching endlessly. Every part of the planet was unique, yet all seemed connected in a delicate balance. When they finally landed in a remote forest, the aliens were struck by the sounds of Earth. They had expected silence, but instead were met with a symphony of life. Birds called to one another in complex patterns, insects hummed and buzzed, and the wind whispered through the leaves in a language they could not decode. Even the water of a nearby stream seemed to speak, trickling over rocks with a rhythm that made their instruments record in confusion. The air itself was alive, carrying scents of earth, flowers, and rain. Every step they took brought new sensations: soft moss underfoot, the sudden darting of small animals, the distant roar of a waterfall. As the aliens moved through the forest, they encountered humans for the first time. A small group of people was camping near the edge of a river, cooking food over a fire. The humans laughed and spoke in a language that the aliens could not interpret. They gestured wildly with their hands, showing emotion that was visible in the movement of their faces, their eyes, and even the tension of their bodies. The aliens studied them from a distance, fascinated by the expressions of joy, frustration, and curiosity. They recorded every motion, every sound, but could not assign it a clear meaning. One of the humans noticed something unusual in the forest. A shimmer of light caught their eye, and they froze, staring at the air where the alien craft had concealed itself. For a moment, the humans' faces reflected fear and wonder simultaneously. They whispered to each other, pointing at something they could not explain. The aliens did not move, did not speak. They merely observed. They realized that humans were capable of perceiving things they themselves could barely understand. These small beings were acutely aware of their surroundings, noticing patterns and anomalies that even the aliens' instruments struggled to detect. Over days, the aliens explored more human settlements. They moved from forests to cities, from mountains to coasts, always careful to remain unseen. They watched humans build machines that defied gravity, communicate instantly across continents, and gather in large groups to celebrate or protest. They saw acts of kindness and cruelty, of bravery and cowardice, of genius and folly. Every observation challenged their understanding of life. Earth was chaotic, vibrant, and unpredictable. No algorithm could predict human behavior, and no pattern could define it. By the end of their first week on Earth, the aliens had made one thing abundantly clear: humanity was unlike anything they had ever encountered. They were not just another intelligent species. They were a force of nature, capable of great destruction and incredible creativity. They laughed and cried. They loved and fought, and they did all of it with an intensity that left the aliens both inspired and cautious. For the first time in their long history of exploration, the aliens faced a world that could not be neatly categorized or understood. Earth was alive in every sense, and its inhabitants were unpredictable, endlessly fascinating, and utterly human. The aliens returned to their fleet, in orbit with more questions than answers. Their instruments had recorded terabytes of data, but no amount of information could explain the essence of humanity. They debated among themselves, trying to put words to what they had seen, but their language lacked the terms to capture the complexity, the chaos, and the beauty. Every human gesture, every moment of creativity, and every act of survival was a revelation. In the silent corridors of their ships, the aliens shared what they had witnessed, and though no words could fully describe it, all agreed on one truth: Earth was extraordinary, and humanity was unlike any life they had ever discovered. They had entered the solar system, expecting to catalog another planet, to measure and classify, but instead they had found a world that demanded understanding, patience, and respect. For the first time, the galaxy had encountered a species for which no words existed, a species whose story was still being written in ways the universe itself could not predict. The aliens decided it was time to move closer. Observing humans from a distance gave them a view of behavior, but it did not reveal the deeper complexities of their lives. They needed to understand what humans felt, how they thought, and why they made the choices they did. They prepared a small, specialized team to descend carefully, choosing a remote area far from major cities. Their craft moved silently through the clouds, landing near a vast plain surrounded by forests and hills. The ground beneath them was alive, vibrating softly with the movement of countless creatures. The first humans they encountered were tending to a field. It was a simple scene, yet full of complexity. Humans worked with their hands, planting, watering, and inspecting the soil. They spoke to one another in quiet tones, laughed when mistakes were made, and showed subtle gestures of care. The aliens observed, amazed at how humans could combine thought, instinct, and teamwork in ways that seemed natural to them. Every movement carried meaning that could not be captured by sensors alone. These humans were not just surviving. They were shaping their environment with intention and creativity. As the aliens moved closer, they witnessed an unexpected moment. A child stumbled and fell near a patch of flowers. The parents rushed to help, lifting the child gently and checking for injuries. The aliens watched the expressions on their faces: worry, relief, and the purest form of love. No matter how advanced the aliens were, no technology could measure or replicate such emotion. They noted it carefully, realizing that compassion was a force they had never encountered in this way. It was unpredictable, yet powerful, influencing human behavior far more than any physical law. That night, the aliens observed a gathering around a fire. Humans had created light to fight the darkness, but the fire also became a center for connection. They spoke, sang, and shared stories, their faces glowing in the flickering light. Some spoke of the past, others imagined the future, and some simply told tales meant to entertain. The aliens could see patterns of communication, but the meaning went beyond data. There was humor, sorrow, hope, and memory all intertwined. Humans expressed themselves in ways that computers could not translate, and the aliens realized that the essence of human life lay in these intangible moments. Days passed as the aliens explored human settlements more deeply. They visited markets filled with color and noise, watched families share meals, and observed workers building and repairing structures. Everywhere they went, they found creativity, resilience, and the constant balancing act between chaos and order. Humans argued and reconciled, competed and collaborated, harmed and healed. Every action seemed to contradict another, yet somehow the species survived and even thrived. The aliens recorded every detail, fascinated by how unpredictability was an essential part of human survival. In one city, they watched humans navigate the complexities of society. People obeyed laws, yet broke them when they felt it necessary. They helped strangers, yet sometimes caused harm unknowingly. The aliens were struck by the contradictions. In their civilization, rules were fixed, behavior was predictable, and emotions were controlled. Earth was entirely different. Humans made mistakes, learned from them, and often made the same mistakes again. Yet, in that chaos, there was growth. The aliens began to understand that humanity's unpredictability was not weakness. It was adaptability. The aliens also noticed how humans connected to the natural world. In the forests, by rivers, and on mountains, humans found beauty and inspiration. They painted, sang, and wrote poems about what they saw. They built shelters that mimicked natural forms, respected animals in some cultures, and destroyed them in others. They observed the stars, charted the seas, and dreamed of flying beyond their planet. For the aliens, this connection to both creation and destruction was bewildering. Humans could be gentle caretakers one moment and fierce destroyers the next. They were fragile yet daring, small yet ambitious, limited yet endlessly inventive. One day, the aliens followed a human group traveling through a desert. They saw how humans adapted to harsh conditions, conserving water, finding shade, and moving with the sun. Despite the danger, the humans laughed and shared stories around their small campfires. They sang songs that seemed meaningless at first, but the aliens realized the songs carried history, memory, and emotion. Every melody was a record of struggle and hope. The aliens attempted to translate it, but their systems failed. No algorithm could capture the depth of human experience. No formula could explain why humans endured and persisted. Even more astonishing was the humans' response to unexpected events. A sudden sandstorm forced the group to take shelter. Humans coordinated quickly, protecting the vulnerable, moving supplies, and calming frightened companions. The aliens watched in awe. In their civilization, emergencies were managed by strict protocols and pre-programmed responses. On Earth, humans improvised, learned in real time, and trusted one another instinctively. Their survival depended on flexibility, courage, and empathy, all traits the aliens had never seen expressed with such intensity. The aliens were especially fascinated by human curiosity. They saw children exploring streams, picking up stones, chasing insects, and asking endless questions. Adults studied stars, plants, machines, and history, seeking to understand the unknown. Humans did not merely adapt, they questioned, imagined, and created. They tested limits, challenged authority, and explored the unknown. The aliens realized that curiosity was perhaps the driving force behind humanity's complexity. It was the spark that allowed them to invent, to survive, and to thrive in a universe that offered no guarantees. As the observation continued, the aliens also witnessed conflict. Humans argued, fought, and sometimes caused suffering to one another. Yet, even in conflict, there was learning. Humans reflected, negotiated, and reconciled, finding ways to coexist despite differences. The aliens noted that the presence of struggle did not destroy them, it strengthened them. Every challenge, every mistake, and every conflict shaped their culture and identity. The aliens began to understand that chaos was not a flaw, but an essential part of human existence. The nights were particularly revealing. The aliens observed humans under the stars, imagining worlds beyond their own, writing stories, and dreaming. They cried when they lost loved ones, laughed at simple joys, and celebrated moments of triumph. The aliens, despite all their technology, felt unprepared to understand these emotional depths. Earth was alive not only in its ecosystems, but in its people. Humans carried passion, imagination, and resilience in every thought and action. Toward the end of the second week, the aliens decided to attempt indirect communication. They left subtle marks in places humans frequented, hoping to gauge reaction without causing fear. Some humans noticed strange lights, mysterious symbols, and objects that seemed impossible. Rather than panic, humans speculated, theorized, and investigated. Their curiosity overcame fear, their imagination overruled confusion, and they sought meaning in the unknown. The aliens were fascinated. Humans approached the unfamiliar not just with caution, but with wonder and a desire to understand. By the time the small alien team returned to their main fleet, they were overwhelmed with what they had witnessed. Humans were not merely intelligent, they were emotional, imaginative, unpredictable, and resilient in ways that defied calculation. Every interaction, every observation, revealed layers of complexity the aliens could not fully categorize. Earth was not just a planet with life, it was a world of endless stories, each human carrying a unique narrative that could not be fully recorded or predicted. The fleet gathered to discuss their findings. For the first time, the aliens felt both awe and uncertainty. They had cataloged many worlds, but none had presented such depth, such contradictions, and such vitality. Words failed them when they tried to describe humans to their civilization. Earthlings were fragile yet courageous, destructive yet creative, bound by instincts yet driven by imagination. There were no analogies, no comparisons, and no formulas that could explain their behavior. Humanity was a puzzle that challenged the very limits of alien understanding. The decision was made to continue observing humans, but with even greater care and attention. The aliens realized that understanding Earth and its people would take time, patience, and humility. They had entered a new chapter of exploration, one where curiosity alone could not explain what they saw. They had to learn to appreciate unpredictability, to value emotion, and to accept that some things might never be fully understood. In those early days of contact, the aliens were captivated, bewildered, and inspired. Humanity was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their lives were complex, their choices unpredictable, and their emotions deep and multifaceted. For the first time, the aliens realized that discovering a planet was not just about studying its land, water, or atmosphere. It was about understanding its people, their stories, and the way they shaped the world around them. Earth had been discovered, but it was far more than a collection of resources or landscapes. It was a living, breathing story, and humans were the heart of it. The aliens, after weeks of observing humans from a distance and up close, realized that understanding humanity required more than watching their daily activities. They needed to see the world as humans saw it, to feel the meaning they placed on their work, play, and relationships. They began traveling to different regions, witnessing the diversity of human life and the endless variety of ways humans adapted to their environments. No two places were the same, and no two people behaved identically. Every corner of the planet revealed a new surprise, a new puzzle to understand. In the dense jungles near the equator, the aliens observed humans living in close harmony with nature. Small villages blended seamlessly with trees and rivers, and humans used the resources around them carefully. They built shelters from natural materials, hunted for food in ways that ensured balance in the ecosystem, and taught their children skills that had been passed down for generations. The aliens were amazed at the knowledge humans carried, knowledge written in memory and tradition rather than in machines or books. Every act, from gathering fruit to repairing a shelter, demonstrated understanding, skill, and patience. These humans were connected to the world in ways that went beyond science and technology. Meanwhile, in sprawling cities far from the jungles, the aliens witnessed a very different kind of human life. Skyscrapers reached toward the sky, lights lit the streets in endless patterns, and machines moved people and goods faster than the aliens' instruments could track. Humans in these cities lived lives that seemed chaotic, yet there was a rhythm to it. They commuted, worked, celebrated, and rested in patterns shaped by culture, technology, and need. The aliens observed humans in subways, markets, and offices, noting how they adapted to a world heavily engineered by themselves. Despite the artificial environment, humans maintained creativity and emotion. Street performers sang, artists painted murals on walls, and children played in tiny parks amidst the concrete jungle. Humans could shape their environment to survive, yet still find joy, beauty, and connection within it. The aliens' journey continued to the polar regions, where humans faced extreme conditions. Here, the planet tested them in ways that technology alone could not solve. Humans built insulated homes, hunted animals, and used ingenious methods to survive bitter cold. They communicated in quiet ways to conserve energy, and small gestures, like sharing warmth or food, carried deep significance. The aliens observed how humans relied on cooperation, trust, and resourcefulness. Even in conditions that seemed impossible, humans endured and adapted. They celebrated life despite danger, finding small joys in survival, companionship, and the natural world. In the mountains, humans climbed treacherous paths and mined resources, often risking their lives for work or tradition. The aliens watched as people demonstrated courage, determination, and care for one another. A misstep could mean disaster, yet humans persisted, often helping one another without expectation of reward. The aliens began to understand that resilience was not simply a matter of biology or intelligence, it was a choice humans made themselves. Strong through effort, courage, and the bonds they formed with others. These bonds, emotional and social, seemed more powerful than any technology the aliens possessed. During their travels, the aliens also encountered human celebrations and rituals. They watched festivals where people danced, sang, and wore bright colors to honor seasons, history, or beliefs. They observed weddings, births, and funerals, where emotions were expressed in ways both subtle and intense. Humans created meaning through these rituals, and the aliens realized that understanding humanity required more than science. It required empathy. Humans were not just physical beings. They were emotional, spiritual, and social. They connected to one another and to the world in ways that could not be explained by algorithms or measured by instruments. The aliens were particularly fascinated by human creativity. They saw people drawing, painting, and sculpting, often using materials that seemed ordinary but transformed into expressions of thought and feeling. Musicians played instruments with skill and emotion, and dancers told stories without words. Writers, poets, and storytellers captured human experiences in ways the aliens could only record but not fully comprehend. Creativity, they realized, was not a luxury for humans. It was essential. It shaped culture, inspired change, and gave humans a way to understand themselves and the world around them. At the same time, the aliens observed human conflict. They saw nations fighting over borders, groups arguing over beliefs, and individuals clashing in ways that caused suffering. But even in conflict, humans showed remarkable resilience. They negotiated, rebuilt, learned, and sometimes found ways to forgive. The aliens understood that conflict was not only a challenge, it was also a force for growth. Humans used struggle to test themselves, learn lessons, and evolve. Even when mistakes were made, humans continued to try, to adapt, and to create better solutions. This balance of destruction and renewal fascinated the aliens. One striking observation came when the aliens visited schools. Children of different ages learned to read, write, and understand math, science, and the arts. Teachers guided them, but students asked questions, experimented, and explored ideas on their own. The aliens were impressed by how learning combined structure and freedom. Knowledge was shared, but imagination was encouraged. They watched a child solve a problem in a completely unexpected way, realizing that unpredictability was not a weakness. It was intelligence and creativity intertwined. Humans taught each other, learned from one another, and built knowledge collectively in a way the aliens found extraordinary. The aliens also observed humans' relationship with technology. In cities, they used machines to travel, communicate, and create. In rural areas, they crafted tools from simple materials to make life easier. Humans adapted technology to suit their needs, using it as an extension of their skills and imagination. The aliens were intrigued by how quickly humans adopted new methods, yet also preserved old traditions. This ability to balance innovation with history gave humans a sense of continuity and identity that no algorithm could replicate. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of humans, the aliens realized, was their emotional depth. They observed love in countless forms between friends, families, partners, and even strangers. They saw grief, sorrow, and heartbreak, and how humans struggled to cope yet continued living. Joy, laughter, curiosity, and wonder were also abundant, often in moments so small that they might go unnoticed by others. The aliens recorded these moments, trying to understand the invisible forces that drove human life. They saw that emotion, far from being a weakness, was the engine behind survival, creativity, and growth. As the aliens traveled across continents, they began to realize that humans could not be summarized in simple terms. One act of kindness could coexist with an act of cruelty. Creativity could flourish alongside destruction. Intelligence and emotion were not separate. They worked together in unpredictable ways. The aliens' instruments struggled to categorize these complexities. Earth was not just a planet with life. It was a planet of contradictions, surprises, and profound depth. Humanity could not be defined by data alone. It had to be experienced, observed, and felt. The aliens also observed humans' connection to each other and their communities. Families, neighbors, and friends relied on mutual trust, support, and cooperation. Even strangers often offered help to those in need. Communities celebrated achievements, mourned losses, and created shared meaning. Humans' ability to form bonds and maintain relationships in the midst of chaos was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. They began to understand that these bonds were central to human survival and identity. Finally, the aliens realized that humans were storytellers at heart. Everywhere they went, humans shared experiences, recorded history, and passed knowledge through generations. Stories preserved lessons, values, and culture, connecting past, present, and future. Humans could imagine worlds beyond their own, dream of possibilities, and create visions that inspired generations. The aliens understood that stories were not just entertainment, they were the essence of what it meant to be human. They were the bridge between knowledge and emotion, experience and imagination, survival and meaning. By the end of their journeys in this phase of observation, the aliens had gathered immense knowledge, but understood that they had only scratched the surface. Every place they visited, every human they watched, revealed new questions. Humans were not a puzzle to solve. They were a living, evolving story that could not be fully predicted or categorized. They were fragile yet resilient, chaotic yet creative, emotional yet logical, destructive yet compassionate. The aliens felt both awe and humility in the presence of such complexity. In reporting their findings to the main fleet, the aliens struggled to describe the humans adequately. Words were insufficient. Charts, graphs, and measurements could capture only the surface. The true essence of humanity, their unpredictability, emotion, creativity, and adaptability, could not be fully expressed. The fleet listened in silence, aware that Earth had revealed a depth of life that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence and civilization. For the first time, the aliens realized that discovering a species was not a matter of observation alone. After weeks of observing humans across the planet, the aliens returned to their fleet in orbit to prepare their report for the galaxy. They had seen forests, deserts, mountains, oceans, and cities, and everywhere they went, humans had surprised them. The fleet's command chamber was quiet as the team began to organize their findings. They had countless recordings, measurements, and observations, but translating this into words and categories for the rest of their civilization was proving almost impossible. Humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever catalogued. The aliens started by reviewing the physical aspects of humanity. Humans were fragile in comparison to many species they had encountered. Their bodies could be easily injured, yet they endured incredible hardships. They survived harsh climates, dangerous animals, and natural disasters that would destroy many other species. Even their food sources were often scarce or unpredictable, but humans adapted with creativity and determination. Despite their physical limitations, humans achieved extraordinary feats. They built cities that reached into the sky, created machines that traveled faster than any other species had before, and explored the depths of their oceans and skies. The aliens noted this resilience and innovation, but even these achievements were only part of the story. What challenged the aliens the most was human emotion. They had observed fear, joy, love, grief, anger, and hope in humans, and realized that these emotions guided behavior in ways no calculation could predict. Humans could act with kindness toward strangers, yet harm others in their own communities. They could display courage in one moment and panic in another. The aliens tried to describe this to their civilization, but their language lacked the words. There was no equivalent for the depth, intensity, and unpredictability of human feelings. Every attempt to categorize humans failed to capture their true essence. The aliens struggled with one fundamental question: should humanity be reported as a threat, a curiosity, or a potential ally? Some argued that humans' unpredictability made them dangerous. Their capacity for destruction, wars, environmental damage, and internal conflicts was significant. If left unchecked, humans could destabilize their own planet, or even spread destruction beyond it. Yet others argued that humans' creativity, empathy, and resilience made them unique. They had the potential for extraordinary achievements, and their imagination could lead to discoveries that even the aliens had never envisioned. The discussion within the fleet became heated. Leaders debated whether the galaxy should intervene, simply observe, or avoid contact altogether. Interference could alter humanity's development, possibly harming them in ways that could not be foreseen. On the other hand, leaving them alone could mean missing the chance to learn from a species that was unlike any other. The aliens realized that this decision carried responsibility far greater than they had faced with any other planet. Humans were not just another intelligent species, they were a force with complexity, emotion, and unpredictability that could not be measured or controlled to make their report. The aliens tried to create classifications based on human behavior, societies, and achievements. They noted humans' intelligence, creativity, physical adaptability, emotional depth, and social bonds. They described their ability to cooperate and compete, to destroy and rebuild, to create art, music, and technology. They included examples of human achievements in science, exploration, and cultural expression. Yet, despite all these observations, the report felt incomplete. Humans could not be reduced to data points or categories. Every act was influenced by countless factors: history, environment, emotion, and imagination. No single framework could explain them fully. The aliens also tried to capture humans' connection to one another and the planet. They described communities, families, and friendships, noting how people supported and protected each other. They recorded humans' care for nature, their efforts to preserve resources, and their curiosity about the universe. Humans could be cruel, selfish, or short-sighted, yet they were also capable of immense kindness, creativity, and heroism. The aliens found it impossible to summarize humanity in one paragraph or even one report. Humans were a story unfolding in real time, with infinite layers, contradictions, and surprises. When the report was presented to the wider galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species were confused, unable to grasp why humans acted as they did. Others were fascinated, eager to study a species that seemed so unpredictable and complex. Many admitted that Earth was unlike any world they had catalogued. Some even questioned whether humans could be controlled, influenced, or understood at all. The aliens realized that the galaxy itself had no words to describe Earth or its people. No analogy existed, no category fit, and no prior experience could prepare them for this encounter. Despite these challenges, the aliens were unanimous in one conclusion: humanity was extraordinary. Their unpredictability, resilience, emotional depth, creativity, and capacity for both destruction and compassion made them unique. The galaxy had never seen life with such contradictions so perfectly intertwined. Humans were fragile yet ambitious, emotional yet logical, destructive yet capable of creation. Every human being was a story, every community a universe of experiences, and every act an expression of possibility. The aliens debated how much to share with the rest of the galaxy. Revealing too much could lead to misinterpretation or fear. They knew that some species might see humans as a threat simply because they could not categorize or control them. Others might try to influence humans, possibly causing harm. The aliens realized that humanity's unpredictability, while fascinating, could also be dangerous if misunderstood. They decided to present the report carefully, highlighting humanity's potential without exaggerating threat or risk. The report emphasized observation over judgment. It described human survival skills, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. It highlighted their capacity for emotion, connection, and imagination. It noted their conflicts and contradictions, but also their ability to learn, adapt, and innovate. The aliens stressed that humans were a living story, not a formula to solve, a species that could not be predicted or fully understood. This approach, they hoped, would encourage curiosity rather than fear within the galaxy. As the report circulated, discussions began across distant star systems. Scholars, leaders, and explorers debated the meaning of humanity. Some marveled at humans' creativity and resilience, while others worried about their destructive potential. Many admitted that Earth was a mystery, a species that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, society, and life itself. The aliens watched these discussions with interest, realizing that they had introduced a species that would become a topic of fascination for generations. Meanwhile, the aliens reflected on their own understanding. Observing humans had changed them in ways they had not anticipated. They had seen emotion, creativity, curiosity, and adaptability at levels they could not replicate. Humans' unpredictability was not a flaw, it was a strength. It allowed them to survive and thrive in a universe that offered no guarantees. The aliens began to see that understanding humanity required humility. No matter how advanced a civilization might be, some aspects of life could not be fully controlled, measured, or predicted. The fleet debated one final question. Should they continue observing humans directly, or should they step back and allow them to develop independently? Some argued for continued close observation to guide and protect humans. Others believed that direct interference could disrupt the natural course of human development. After careful discussion, the consensus was clear. Humans must be left to grow and evolve on their own, with only subtle observation to understand their story. The aliens recognized that the greatest act of respect was to allow humans to continue their journey freely, without manipulation or control. Before leaving, the aliens recorded one last set of observations. They captured the beauty of Earth, the oceans, forests, deserts, and mountains. They recorded humans' interactions, their laughter, their struggles, and their celebrations. They documented the complexity, contradictions, and unpredictability that made humans so remarkable. Every detail was preserved, not as a guide for control, but as a record of a species unlike any other. The aliens realized that, in observing humans, they had glimpsed the extraordinary possibilities of life itself. As the fleet prepared to leave orbit, the aliens looked back at Earth one final time. The planet continued its endless dance, teeming with life, movement, and stories. Humans carried on with their work, play, and relationships, unaware that they had been watched by beings from beyond the stars. For the aliens, Earth was not just a planet. They had discovered a living, breathing narrative, full of depth, beauty, and infinite potential. Humanity was a story that could not be told in words, measured in data, or predicted by any formula. It was alive, chaotic, and extraordinary in ways the galaxy had never seen. The aliens' report would live on in the records of their civilization, a testament to Earth and its people. Other species would read it, study it, and debate it for centuries, trying to understand what they themselves could not fully comprehend. Humans, meanwhile, would continue their lives, unaware that their existence had captivated an entire galaxy. The aliens knew that the stow. After returning to their fleet and sharing their report with the galaxy, the aliens faced a difficult choice. They had seen humans up close, traveled across continents, and observed the full spectrum of human behavior. They had witnessed courage, kindness, creativity, and love, but also destruction, cruelty, and conflict. Humans were unpredictable, sometimes irrational, and their decisions could not be fully anticipated. The aliens had to decide, should they reveal themselves to humanity, remain hidden, or simply guide them subtly from afar? Some of the fleet's leaders argued that revealing themselves could be dangerous. Humans were not prepared for contact with an advanced civilization. They might react with fear, panic, or aggression. Entire societies could collapse if people felt threatened by beings from the stars. Even if humans responded peacefully, the sheer difference in technology and knowledge could cause unintended consequences. Leaders feared that direct interaction might destabilize Earth, potentially harming the species they had come to admire. Others argued that humans had already demonstrated remarkable intelligence and adaptability. They could learn and grow, and the aliens' presence might accelerate progress, helping humans avoid destructive mistakes. Sharing knowledge could inspire new ideas, new technology, and even new ways of thinking about the universe. Yet many also feared that direct contact could be misused. Humans were capable of both creativity and destruction, and the aliens could not predict which path they would take. The debate continued for days. Some factions proposed leaving gifts of knowledge in subtle ways tools, ideas or discoveries that humans could find on their own. Others suggested observing quietly, allowing humanity to evolve naturally without interference. There were even those who wanted to test humans, to provoke challenges, and see how they would respond. But the majority agreed that caution was the wisest path. Humanity was a story in progress, full of possibilities, and interference could change the course of that story forever. Finally, the decision was made. The aliens would remain hidden. They would observe humans, study their progress, and learn from them, but they would not reveal themselves directly. Instead, they would leave subtle influences, small interventions that could guide humanity without disrupting its natural development. These interventions were not physical, no sudden appearances or displays of power, but rather subtle suggestions left in human minds, sparks of curiosity or inspiration that could emerge in science, art, or exploration. The aliens began to implement this plan carefully. They watched the world from orbit and from hidden vantage points on Earth, identifying moments where humans were struggling or seeking answers. A child studying the stars might suddenly think of a new idea for observing the heavens. A scientist struggling with a problem might have an unexpected breakthrough. These subtle nudges were designed to encourage learning and creativity without causing dependence or fear. The aliens monitored the results closely, amazed at how quickly humans adapted and made use of even the smallest hint. In cities and towns, humans continued their daily lives, unaware of the quiet observers. Children played in parks, families shared meals, workers built, repaired, and invented, and communities celebrated milestones and traditions. The aliens watched with admiration as humans continued to demonstrate resilience and ingenuity. Even when mistakes were made, humans learned from them, adapted, and moved forward. The aliens realized that guidance was not needed in the traditional sense. Humanity had an innate drive to grow, discover, and create. The subtle interventions were merely sparks, highlighting paths humans might already be inclined to follow. In remote regions, the aliens observed humans interacting with nature. They saw farmers cultivating the land, herders tending animals, and fishermen navigating rivers and seas. Humans demonstrated patience, observation, and creativity, often inventing solutions to problems with limited resources. The aliens were impressed by the adaptability and persistence of humans in challenging environments. They noted that humans could learn not only from observation and instruction, but from trial and error, experimentation, and cooperation with one another. This ability to navigate uncertainty fascinated the aliens. The aliens also observed how humans responded to disasters and crises. Natural events such as storms, earthquakes, and floods tested human resilience. Yet, humans did not simply endure, they organized, cooperated, and adapted. Communities came together to rebuild, to care for the vulnerable, and to learn from mistakes. Even in moments of tragedy, humans found ways to inspire hope and courage. The aliens realized that this ability to respond with determination and creativity in the face of danger was one of humanity's most remarkable traits. At the same time, the aliens noted the complexity of human emotion and thought. People experienced fear, joy, love, grief, and anger in ways that influenced decisions and shaped behavior. These emotions were unpredictable, yet they drove humans to achieve extraordinary things. Love inspired sacrifice, curiosity sparked innovation, and grief motivated change. The aliens recorded these observations, recognizing that emotion was not a weakness, but a core strength of human life. It gave humans purpose, motivation, and resilience. The aliens were particularly fascinated by human storytelling. Everywhere they looked, humans created narratives to explain the world, record history, and imagine possibilities. Stories were shared in families, schools, books, theaters, and digital media. They shaped identity, taught lessons, and inspired action. The aliens realized that storytelling was a form of guidance in itself. Humans passed knowledge, values, and wisdom through narrative, creating a self-sustaining cycle of learning and imagination. Even subtle interventions by the aliens could ripple through these stories, influencing human culture without direct interference. As months passed, the aliens continued their careful observation. They saw humans celebrating achievements, mourning losses, exploring new ideas, and inventing solutions to problems. They witnessed acts of bravery, kindness, and creativity on scales both small and large. They also saw humans struggling, making mistakes, and facing the consequences of their actions. Yet, even in failure, humans persisted, learned, and adapted. This resilience, combined with imagination and emotional depth, convinced the aliens that humanity was a species capable of growth beyond what any algorithm or model could predict. The aliens occasionally debated whether more direct contact might ever be necessary. Some argued that humanity might face threats that could require intervention, while others believed humans could solve their own problems if given the chance. Ultimately, the decision to remain hidden was reaffirmed. Direct interference carried risks that could not be predicted. Humanity's story was still being written, and it was better to observe, learn, and provide subtle guidance than to impose control. The aliens understood that patience and respect were crucial in allowing humans to grow naturally. During this period, the aliens reflected on their own civilization. Observing humans had revealed new insights into life, intelligence, and creativity. They realized that predictability and control were not the only paths to progress. Human unpredictability, emotional depth, and adaptability offered lessons that could inspire even the most advanced species. By watching humans, the aliens began to question assumptions about intelligence, civilization, and the role of emotion in decision-making. They saw that a species could be both fragile and powerful, chaotic and innovative, limited yet capable of extraordinary achievements. The aliens continued to monitor Earth from orbit and hidden observation points. They documented human activity, tracking trends in culture, technology, exploration, and social interaction. They observed humans sending machines to space, exploring oceans, inventing new ways to communicate, and creating art that inspired generations. The aliens were amazed at the persistence, ingenuity, and creativity of humans. Even small interventions, subtle inspirations, or sparks of ideas had noticeable effects. Yet humans always adapted in unexpected ways. Combining guidance with their own ingenuity. As years passed, the aliens saw humanity continue to evolve. Cities expanded, technology advanced, and knowledge spread rapidly across the globe. Humans explored space, studied their environment, and faced challenges that tested their resilience. Yet despite progress, the core of humanity remained the same: curious, emotional, inventive, and unpredictable. The aliens understood that this combination of traits made humans unique and remarkable. Every generation added to the story, shaping the planet and influencing the course of history in ways that could not be fully predicted. By remaining hidden, the aliens ensured that humans would grow on their own terms. They could observe without disrupting, learn without controlling, and appreciate without interfering. Earth became a laboratory of life and intelligence, a place where the galaxy could witness the unfolding of a species that challenged understanding. Humanity's story continued to evolve, full of surprises, triumphs, mistakes, and discoveries. The aliens watched with admiration, humility, and curiosity, recognizing that this was one of the most extraordinary phenomena they had ever encountered. In the end, the aliens accepted that their role was not to lead or control, but to observe and learn. Humanity was resilient, creative, and capable of growth beyond what even the most advanced SP. Time passed, and the aliens continued to watch humanity from the shadows. Generations grew, cities expanded, and technology advanced in ways even the aliens found astonishing. Humans explored space, built machines that traveled to distant planets, and studied the mysteries of their own world with curiosity and determination. Yet, despite these achievements, humans remained unpredictable, emotional, and creative. Every choice they made, every invention, every act of courage or kindness added to the intricate, living story of their civilization. The aliens reflected on how much they had learned from observing Earth. They had seen courage in the face of danger, kindness toward strangers, love that defied reason, and creativity that transformed ordinary materials into art and technology. They had witnessed humans struggle with challenges, learn from mistakes, and continue moving forward despite setbacks. Every human was a story, every community a universe of experiences, and every act an expression of possibility. Observing humans had taught the aliens that intelligence alone was not enough. It was emotion, creativity, and adaptability that made life truly extraordinary. As they prepared to leave Earth's orbit for the first time in decades, the aliens faced mixed emotions. They felt pride and admiration for humanity, but also a sense of uncertainty. Humans had grown and evolved, yet their unpredictability made it impossible to know what they would do next. The aliens understood that the planet was alive, not only because of its landscapes, oceans, and forests, but because of its people. Humanity was the beating heart of Earth, shaping the world through their actions, emotions, and imagination. The aliens decided that their departure would be quiet, leaving no trace of their presence. They would not reveal themselves, for the timing was not right. Humanity was strong, capable, and creative, but the galaxy remained unknown to them. A sudden revelation of life beyond Earth could inspire fear or misinterpretation, and the aliens did not wish to interfere. Instead, they left subtle reminders, tiny sparks of curiosity, ideas planted in the minds of thinkers and dreamers, hints that could guide humanity toward discovery without altering the natural course of their growth. As they ascended into the vastness of space, the aliens looked back at Earth. From orbit, the planet was a swirl of blue oceans, green forests, brown deserts, and white clouds teeming with life. Cities glimmered like constellations, and rivers snaked across the land like silver threads. They observed humans living, learning, creating, and connecting. Children laughed in playgrounds, families shared meals, scientists explored the unknown, and communities celebrated milestones. Earth was alive, and humanity thrived at its core. unpredictable yet remarkable, fragile yet resilient. The aliens' mission had begun as a scientific observation, but it had become something more profound. They had discovered the essence of humanity, a species defined not only by intelligence, but by emotion, creativity, and connection. Humans were storytellers at heart, shaping their own histories, myths, and legacies. Every invention, every work of art, every act of kindness or courage contributed to the unfolding story of their civilization. The aliens realized that understanding a species required more than observation. It required empathy, patience, and respect. Even as they left, the aliens continued to monitor subtle patterns of human growth. They noted innovations in science, exploration, and communication. They observed how humans responded to challenges, natural disasters, conflicts, and crises with determination, cooperation, and resilience. Every act of problem-solving, every creative solution, every attempt to reach beyond their limitations fascinated the aliens. Humans continued to surprise them, inspiring admiration and a sense of wonder that no other species had ever evoked. The aliens also reflected on the role of emotion in human progress. Fear, hope, love, grief, curiosity, and determination drove actions and decisions in ways that no algorithm could predict. Humans could be irrational and inconsistent, yet these very traits fueled their creativity, resilience, and innovation. The aliens realized that emotion was not a weakness, but a powerful engine for growth, a force that shaped the course of history in ways that logic alone never could. Humanity's unpredictability was a strength, allowing them to adapt to challenges, imagine new possibilities, and connect deeply with one another. As they moved farther from Earth, the aliens discussed the legacy of their observation. Humanity had been a mirror, showing them what intelligence could achieve when combined with emotion, creativity, and connection. The aliens had learned that predictability was not the measure of a species' worth. Instead, it was the ability to imagine, to empathize, to learn from mistakes, and to inspire one another that made life extraordinary. They understood that humans had a capacity for growth beyond any expectation, capable of achieving wonders that no other species could foresee. From the distant reaches of space, the aliens continued to watch Earth occasionally, noting subtle patterns of change. Humans explored space, uncovered scientific mysteries, and created art that reflected the complexity of their emotions and experiences. They continued to connect with one another, form communities, and build societies in ways that were at once chaotic and remarkable. Every day brought new challenges, new discoveries, and new stories, and the aliens observed with admiration and respect. Humanity was alive, vibrant, and unpredictable, and this was what made them extraordinary. The aliens also noted how humans learned from one another and from their environment. Every mistake became a lesson, every triumph an inspiration. Communities shared knowledge, innovation spread, and cultures evolved. Humans adapted to changing conditions, overcame obstacles, and pushed the boundaries of understanding. The aliens realized that this ability to learn and grow through trial, error, and collaboration was a defining feature of humanity. They had seen many species, but none had combined intelligence, creativity, emotion, and adaptability in such a profound way. Despite leaving Earth, the aliens did not forget the lessons they had learned. Humanity had taught them humility, patience, and the importance of empathy. They had witnessed courage, kindness, and creativity at levels that defied expectation. They had seen that life was not simply about survival or efficiency, but about connection, growth, and the unfolding of stories. Humans had shown them that unpredictability, far from being a weakness, was a sign of strength and resilience. Before finally departing to the far reaches of the galaxy, the aliens left one last subtle influence. They planted small sparks of inspiration in the minds of humans' thoughts about exploration, creativity, compassion, and discovery. These sparks were not instructions or commands, but gentle nudges to encourage curiosity and growth. Humans, unaware of the source, embraced these inspirations naturally, integrating them into their daily lives, inventions, and stories. The aliens smiled, knowing that even without direct intervention, they could leave a quiet mark on the unfolding story of humanity. As they moved farther into the cosmos, the aliens reflected on the uniqueness of Earth. They had observed countless worlds, yet none had presented the complexity, unpredictability, and emotional depth of humanity. Every human was a story, every community a universe, every act of creation or compassion a thread in the larger tapestry of life. Earth was more than a planet, it was a living narrative, a stage for countless dramas, achievements, and discoveries. The aliens realized that witnessing this story was a privilege, one that had expanded their understanding of life itself. They understood that Earth would continue to evolve, and humanity's story would unfold in ways even they could not predict. Wars would be fought, discoveries made, art created, and lives lived in moments of joy, sorrow, and triumph. Humans would continue to surprise, challenge, and inspire, shaping the world and their own destinies. The aliens left with the knowledge that their observation was only the beginning of understanding life on Earth. The story of humanity would continue, endlessly complex, unpredictable, an extraordinary dot from their distant vantage point. The aliens watched Earth shrink into the distance, its blue oceans, green forests, and white clouds becoming a small jewel in the vast galaxy. They had discovered a planet alive with possibility and a species that defied comprehension. Humanity's unpredictability, creativity, emotional depth, and resilience made them one of the most remarkable civilizations the galaxy had ever encountered. Even as the aliens moved on to explore other worlds, Earth remained vivid in their memory, a symbol of life at its most extraordinary and beautiful dot. And so, the aliens departed, leaving humanity to continue its journey unknowing, yet subtly guided by quiet sparks of inspiration. The planet remained vibrant, alive, and full of stories, each human contributing to the ongoing tapestry of life. Humans would grow, explore, create, and connect, unaware that they had been observed by beings from beyond the stars. The aliens had witnessed the extraordinary, learned from it, and carried those lessons into the galaxy. Earth would continue, and humanity's story would unfold in ways that no one, not even the aliens, could fully predict. In the end, the galaxy had discovered something new, not a planet to control or a species to categorize, but a living, breathing story, complex, unpredictable, and beautiful. Humanity had become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that intelligence alone is not enough. Creative,